Hello, I'm Kim Haynes, a Product Marketing Manager in the Chemistry Technology Center at Waters Corporation. In the final part of this series, I'd like to talk to you about some steps you can take if you find the recovery of your peptide solid phase extraction method is low or not reproducible. There are a few key considerations to keep in mind if you run into trouble.
One of the keys to troubleshooting when developing any solid phase extraction method is doing a mass balance. What this really means is collecting your load step, wash, and elution steps, and just doing a simple, qualitative check to see if any of your peptide is breaking through in a step you're hoping it won't. If you find some of your peptide eluting in the load step, you can try the following. Remove some of the matrix prior to solid phase extraction. For example, you can do a 1-to-1 protein precipitation, but be careful, don't go any higher, as you may precipitate your peptides right along with your proteins. You can also reduce the sample size or the concentration that you're loading onto the sorbent, or you can move to a larger sorbent bed mass. Use caution though, because if this makes evaporation and reconstitution necessary, you could lose peptide during this process. Another problem you may find is that you're getting low recovery of polar peptides. Using the peptide protocol that we discussed, we're actually relying on reverse phase retention during the load step to capture most peptides. If the peptides don't retain by reverse phase in this step, we need to initiate ion exchange binding during the load step. In this case, you could try a sample pretreatment using a 1-to-1 dilution of 5% ammonium hydroxide instead of the 4% phosphoric acid to see if this changes the ionization state of the peptide during the load, and that will encourage ion exchange retention. Polar peptides can also be lost in the wash steps. If your peptide degrades in the basic wash step, you can change that wash to 10 millimolar phosphate buffer at pH 7 or 10 millimolar ammonium acetate at pH 6. You could also try decreasing the percentage of acetonitrile in wash number 2. As you're developing your solid phase extraction method, you may see that you have low recoveries, but during your mass balance, you didn't find the peptide eluting in the load or the wash steps. That means it's likely stuck on the sorbent. This could be due to peptide solubility problems. The elution solvent that you're using may not be correct to elute your peptide. You can try the following to fix this problem. Make sure that you're passing enough volume through the sorbent to fully elute your peptide. Make sure you use at least 25 to 50 microliters with the microelution plate format. Check your elution flow rate. The flow shouldn't be too fast, or you're not allowing enough contact time between the elution solvent and the sorbent to allow for complete elution. You should be able to see discrete drops coming from the tips of the plate for a flow rate of approximately 1 mL per minute. You can also try adding a higher concentration of modifier to increase the solubility of your peptide. This means more acid or base, not more organic. And remember not to go above 75% acetonitrile. This can cause your peptides to precipitate and not elute. Another problem that can be difficult to troubleshoot is maybe you noticed low recovery when you had your peptide in the sample matrix, but the recovery was actually fine when it was in the standard solution. What happened? Well, it could be either the following. You may need to be more aggressive to disrupt your protein binding. If the sample dilution with the 4% phosphoric acid solution or the 5% ammonium hydroxide solution doesn't work, try doing a 1-to-1 protein precipitation, taking care that you keep the ratio low or you'll precipitate your peptides right out with the proteins. You can also add detergents to denature the proteins, like SDS or guanidine hydrochloride. You could also be having a sorbent capacity problem. In the neat solution, the peptide could bind to the sorbents, but now the presence of matrix in the actual sample is overwhelming the sorbent binding capacity. In this case, you could reduce the sample mass or the volume that you're loading onto the sorbent, or you could increase the sorbent amount of the solid phase extraction device. However, if you have to do that, remember that the larger elution volume that comes along with a larger device may require you to do an evaporation and reconstitution step that could lead to peptide losses.
We really hope you enjoyed this series and it helped demystify some of the challenges you may have experienced when working on peptide quantification. For more information about this and other related topics, you can always visit the Bioanalysis Bootcamp to learn more and increase your peptide and protein quantification fitness. Thank you.